Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sanghang namassami. Good morning, dear friends, and I apologize for being a few minutes late with this morning's sutta discussion, continuing on the theme of feeling. I'm going to open the Indriyabhāvanāsutta, which is number 152 in the Middle Length Discourses. There it is. So I heard the Buddha was staying near Kajangala in the bamboo grove. The student Uttara approached the Buddha. There was polite greetings and conversation. And then the Buddha addresses him as Uttara Dasparasarya teaches disciple the development of the faculties. So there are different ideas that are presented as the indriyas. In this case, it's referring to the different sense bases, the internal sense base, which together with consciousness and the presence of a corresponding external object creates the phenomenon that we experience through the senses. The other kind of indriyas are the spiritual faculties, but that's not what we're talking about in this case. And now, the question here is how to be a master of, especially of the five senses and of the mind sense, how to be a master of the senses. In this case, with the other teacher, Pasarya, they give this concept, Ruda Gautama, it's when the eye sees no sight and the ear hears no sound. This Bhante Sujata has been very helpful recently in, he's been studying the Upanishads and the Vedic teachings to bring out correspondences or references in the Pali Suttas with the other spiritual traditions that were going on at the time. So in this case, Bhante Sujata suggests that this could be a reference to teachings that speak of an undifferentiated state of divinity wherein the potential for the faculties is cut off. Seeing a sight and hearing a sound is a different kind of a shorthand also. Sometimes, because why do they talk about those, but then they don't talk about smelling a smell, tasting a taste, and touching a touch? Sometimes seeing a sight and hearing a sound is a sort of a stand-in for all of the five senses. And then at other times, it's referring to seeing a sight is seeing the sight of an enlightened guru, an enlightened teacher, which is supposed to be very beneficial. And then hearing a sound is said to be learning the Dhamma because you heard it. So a student, a learner, is somebody who has heard. At that time, most students would not be learning from reading books. So then something that you know because you've heard about it secondhand, from a secondhand source, that's what's referred to by hearing. And in the case of somebody with wrong view, they can form wrong views by becoming attached to a guru that they saw and becoming attached and clinging to the scripture that they've memorized in a way that leads to views and conflict of views and quarrels and arguments about views. So the Buddha gave two different alternatives just about seeing a sight and hearing a sound. One alternative is that he's saying it means really depending on your direct experiences, that what you see, let the seeing be just the seeing, and let the hearing be just the hearing. So instead of getting caught up in subscribing to blind faith, instead to depend on reality as you're able to know it directly. But then there's another teaching about this, which I think is very interesting, when they talk about the conditions leading to stream entry. One condition is to see a noble person, and the other to frequently visit and attend on visiting, becoming face-to-face in contact with noble teachers. So this is a kind of a wisdom that's saying you would have a very difficult time to reach stream entry if you didn't have any friends with realization and you were just sitting in home reading books, or worse yet, if you were just sitting at home on your computer looking up different Buddhist groups and trying to find the answer to your questions from what comes through on the Google. There's like so much confusion, and there's such a big gap between the words on the page and what you think would the meaning, significance of that be, what you imagine or can speculate the significance could be if you don't have any realization yourself. But if you find some teacher or some good friend who's got some kind of realization, you can learn so much just by seeing how they respond, how they live, what they're manifesting, how they speak, what their reaction is to many kinds of situations. So seeing in that way is beneficial. And then the hearing or the learning, the second factor for stream entry is frequently listening to the true Dhamma. So both of those cases, this is somebody who is perhaps like a faith follower who has not yet had the personal realization of stream entry. They haven't got yet the direct knowledge or the direct vision of awakening. But they can, in a useful way, lean on the help from these external sources, seeing having realized good friends and listening to the true Dhamma. So in this case, the person who's in a state of meditation where they've cut off the senses and see no sight and hear no sound, that's an accomplishment of meditation if you're able to do that. But the Buddha said that's not it. In that case, the Buddha says, a blind person and a deaf person will have developed the faculties. For a blind person sees no sight with the eye, and a deaf person hears no sound with the ear. So now the Buddha addresses Venerable Ananda. He says, Ananda, the development of the faculties taught by Parasarya, quite different from the supreme development of the faculties in the training of the Noble One. And Ananda says, request the teaching. Now is the time, Blessed One. Let the Buddha teach the supreme development of the faculties in the training of the Noble One. The mendicants will listen and remember it. And so the Buddha says this. How is there this supreme development of the faculties? When a mendicant sees a sight with their eyes, in them arises what's agreeable, what is disagreeable, and what is both agreeable and disagreeable. These are an interesting Pali word, which is called manapa. Manapa is something that's naturally lovable. So you could say that it's all relative depending on your underlying tendencies, whether something that somebody else finds to be lovable would not be lovable to you. Flower, maybe it could be like lovable to one person, but somebody else who's allergic to the scent would find it to be not lovable. And so in that way, things are relative, but there are objects which in the normal case are pleasant and lovable. In my opinion, one of the most lovable objects is the breath. The breath is a very good, almost a universal subject of meditation, because for most people who are not ill, watching the breath is a tranquil, pleasant kind of activity that helps the mind to calm down, and it helps for the blissful, happy side of meditation to come up, just because of the pleasant aspect of breath. So the manapa is agreeable or lovable. Manapa is the opposite, and then both. So they have seen the sight. Within them, their internal imagery of that has arisen as being agreeable or not. They understand it. What's agreeable, what's disagreeable, or both, has arisen in me. And furthermore, they understand that's conditioned, crude, and dependently originated. But this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. Then the agreeable, the disagreeable, and the both that arose in them cease. And equanimity becomes stabilized. So this is the internal process upon seeing a likable object, if you saw it in a way that was colored by craving or delusion, then sensual pleasure could arise in you, a liking could arise in you, or if the object is disagreeable, dislike could arise in you, sensual pain could arise in you, and the mind can be disturbed by that and can begin to fall into proliferation and obsession. But for the wise disciple who's developed in the senses, immediately when the sense impression arises in them, they see its actual nature, the underlying tendency for liking and disliking doesn't arise in them. And they recognize this is just part of conditioned existence. It's just the continuous flow of impermanent things that arise and pass away. And seeing that wisely, then the factor of equanimity comes up. And with equanimity, they're internally peaceful. They're internally in a sublime state. And also they're able to see very clearly. That's a quality of equanimity, is clearness of perception, in addition to the lack of a disturbance. The Buddha continues, it's like how a person with clear eyes might open their eyes and then shut them, or might shut their eyes and then open them. Such is the speed, the swiftness, the ease with which anything agreeable, disagreeable, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose in them cease, and equanimity becomes stabilized. The training of the Noble One, in the training of the Noble One, this is called the supreme development of the faculties regarding the eye. And this is similar for each one of the senses. When they hear a sound, exactly the same thought process. The metaphor for the sound, for how quick is a snap of the fingers. That quickly, the agreeable, disagreeable aspect ceases, and equanimity is stabilized. And then for smelling and odor, exactly the same. And the metaphor for the odor, it's like how a drop of water would roll off the gently sloping lotus leaf and would not stay there. So the lotus leaf has a very strong fragrance, and that fragrance permeates the entire flower. Even the blossom and the stem and the leaves are all strongly permeated with that pleasant aroma, which is so agreeable. But just like the drop of water falls away, then liking falls away and equanimity is stabilized. And then same thing with the flavor, exactly the same process. And the metaphor for flavor is, since flavor's in the mouth, it's how a person who's formed a gob of spit on the tip of their tongue. I guess if you hack up a bit of phlegm from your lungs or something like that, you can taste it, see how that tastes to you, and see whether that flavor, that gob is a pleasant flavor or not pleasant. And so how quickly you can spit that out. And then that easily equanimity can be arise and become stabilized. And then touching, exactly the same thing. And then here's another metaphor for touching. Touching is with the body. And it's referring to how a strong person can extend their arm and contract their arm. So just that easy is how easy it is for equanimity to become stabilized. With respect to touches, I will say that for most people, touching is very much associated with emotional reactivity. Why is that? It's because any kind of object at all, whether it be eyes, ears, nose, smelling, or thinking, or touching, if some emotional reaction gets started, then the nervous system is aroused, either the sympathetic nervous system, I think that's the one that's involved with tension and fight or flight reaction. So the adrenaline starts going and the blood flows to the limbs and your heart starts beating and you're ready to run away or start a fight, something like that. Or else the parasympathetic nervous system is the one that's for relaxing. And then the blood comes away from the extremity of the limbs and goes to the core of the body, and you're able to be able to rest and digest the food, and feel relaxed and calm. And then all kinds of other kinds of things get excited inside the body when there's emotional reaction starting. And so then we very often perceive these emotions with the body. So it's not just a touch that's coming from something external, like the touch of the warm air or the cool air, or the touch of the clothing on the skin, or the touching of the seat pressing on the cushion, but also a lot of phenomenon that's happening inside the body is experienced as touching, is associated with emotions, and is maybe the most challenging and real case for how precious, how valuable it would be if some disagreeable touch arose in your stomach or in your heart. If you were able to very quickly, almost automatically, have this perception that this, whatever is arising inside my body, is conditioned, crude, dependently originated. But as the alternative to that, this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. And if you would train the mind so that even the arousing of these kind of like activations inside the body would be a trigger, and as soon as you notice that, because you've trained your mind, you think, oh, where's the equanimity? Let's find, I need to call equanimity right now. And if the mind is trained, so we know how to think of equanimity and call it and bring it to us and come there. So then having those kind of touching phenomena would make you come to that. And I'm making a claim here. This is related to what we were speaking about a couple of days ago about the Vedana, the feeling. So enlightened noble disciples and ordinary unenlightened people have pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings. And when an ordinary person is touched by a feeling, then all of those emotional reactions can be stirred up. and a person can be carried away by emotional reactions. So I make the claim, I'm trying to find out where in the suttas I can actually find this supported, but I'm pretty sure that feeling is like a spark, or like a fuel that supports the activation of the mind, that supports the arousal of emotional reactions, that even supports the arousing of energy, that supports the arousing of intentions, that a lot of the, like just the energizing factor in our whole life is coming from Vedana. And Vedana is karmically neutral. Everybody has them. Everybody has feeling. But how the feeling is picked up determines whether you're going down a very dangerous road, going towards craving, clinging, becoming, birth, old age, sickness, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. You can take that track from Vedana, or else one can take the track of wisdom, which just allows a feeling as just a feeling, and it doesn't need to cause any kind of a proliferation or unwholesome clinging to self, or clinging to any kind of thoughts. But even in the path of wisdom, this equanimity is connected to feeling. Sometimes in meditation, neutral feeling and equanimity are happening together at the same time. And the presence of neutral feeling can cause equanimity to be like really bright and easy to discern. And then at other times, there's mental or spiritual feelings, which are pleasant feelings, definitely pleasant feelings. And with wisdom, we don't let those pleasant feelings trigger our clinging and craving, but instead we just know those pleasant feelings, and that becomes support in a kind of, for the positive, wholesome virya to develop those wholesome states of mind, because the wholesome states of mind are accompanied by pleasant Vedana. So it's like we got to know how to use Vedana in a skillful way to let the Vedana help to energize, motivate, and fuel, and become like even a nutriment for practicing correctly. So and I'm mentioning this as a preamble to this idea about the thoughts. When a mendicant knows a thought with their mind that's agreeable, that's disagreeable, or both, they understand what is agreeable, what is disagreeable, and what is both agreeable and disagreeable have arisen in me. That's conditioned, crude, and dependently originated. But this is peaceful and sublime, namely equanimity. Then the agreeable, the disagreeable, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose in them cease. So one is then no longer a puppet captured by reactions to different kind of thoughts being either likable or dislikable. Instead, the awareness is able to take a step back of detachment and to see both with equanimity. And this now comes the metaphor, which I've often heard as a metaphor for mindfulness also. A strong person could let 2 or 3 drops of water fall into an iron cauldron that's been heated all day. The drops would be slow to fall, but they'd quickly dry up and evaporate. So I know that my home teacher, Bandaji, very often recommended trying to have red-hot mindfulness. So your mindfulness is like that cauldron. So even how swiftly a thought could arise in the mind is considered to be actually slow compared to how quickly the mindfulness can dispel the reaction to it. This is the swiftness, the speed, which anything agreeable, disagreeable, and both that arose in them can cease, and equanimity can become stabilized. Now I'm going to come to the second theme of this meditation, of this discourse. So this is referring to a practicing trainee, Seika or Seiko. A trainee is somebody who has gained stream entry, who's had some kind of a direct view, a glimpse of what awakening really is, who's had the experience that some of the defilements that keep us trapped in this cycle of rebirth, trapped in this cycle of suffering, that at least some of them you can see directly that they're able to drop away and drop away permanently. Or at least I have found this somewhere, somebody who is on the path of stream entry. So even if you've not fully realized stream entry, if you're partway there, even then you could be somebody who's recognized as a trainee, and this training then is useful for you. If you're not a trainee, if you don't have a clue, if you haven't had a glimpse of what awakening is, what the significance of awakening is, then the Buddha would recommend finding somebody who's realized and go visit them, and then listen to the true Dhamma, and frequently listen to the true Dhamma. And then he recommends try to develop wise attention to look within yourself, this is the Yoniso Manasikara, try to develop that wise attention, looking within, and then try, based on just on faith, just have enough faith in this practice to try to practice as the training is given. Try to reflect about the Four Noble Truths. Try to uphold good sila. Try to clean the mind of bad mental states. But then once one has crossed over that way, had that realization, become sort of like entered this path of training, then you're a trainee. And then you should practice this training that I'm going to read you. When a mendicant sees a sight with her eyes, and the agreeable, the disagreeable, and both agreeable and disagreeable arise in them, they are horrified, repelled, and disgusted by that. So that emotional reactivity arising, you don't want to go there. You're horrified. It's like touching a hot stove. You see the danger, and you don't want to touch that hot stove. You're repelled. I know this is strong teaching, but likewise with all the senses and likewise with the thoughts. This can be a challenging phase of the training. I know when somebody has got like a glimpse or a taste that freedom is possible, and yet depending on what the trigger is, if they're able to fall off the wagon, fall into the ditch, fall into emotional reactivity, and then it can be very discouraging, because we say, like, in one way, well, I know better, so why do I keep falling into that, into those compulsive, toxic, self-destructive patterns of thinking? Why do I keep falling into negativity? Why can't I just gain that purity? But even with this really kind of like harsh description of being horrified, repelled, and disgusted, it still is necessary to have the self-compassion. There's another kind of self-talk that we give, where we'd say, well, these reactions are arising in me because of causes and conditions, because of my previous conditioning, because of my human birth, because of all of the life experience I've had before, the things that happened to me, because of the choices that I made before that created certain habits in me. These have all created conditions that are now maturing in sitting with these afflictions, and knowing the Buddha advised that dukkha should be fully understood. If I don't yet know how to abandon the cause of dukkha, then I have to live with it, just in this totally compassionate way, and try to understand. It's as if the physician encounters a patient who's got some terrible symptoms, but the physician doesn't yet know for sure what exactly is the disease that's arising. The physician doesn't yet know exactly what prescription to prescribe that's going to overcome that condition. And so the physician is, like, with total compassion, total interest, examining, looking, investigating, searching, saying, where is this coming from? Where are these symptoms coming from? And what's the prescription for that? And then with that investigation, you and motivated by self-compassion, you will be able to discover the cause, and you will be able to find out how to let go of those agreeable, disagreeable, and mixed reactions, in order to drop those and allow equanimity to come up to the fore. So you don't need to force equanimity to arise, but you need to do the work and get out of the way, and with your mindfulness be able to know and recognize when you get your moments of equanimity. Those moments of equanimity are like an island of sanity in the midst of your disease, or an island of wellness in the midst of a disease process. And when you can see where the wellness and healing is, then, but just with mindful awareness, by seeing that clearly, then that expands this, I'll call it the island of wellness, until it becomes a continent, or it becomes something reliable, something that you can stand on. Then the next is the description of a noble one with developed faculties. And this is the description of an arahant. You might think, what's the use of knowing how it is for an arahant, since I'm so far from enlightenment? I'm never going to be able to achieve this, so why bother even thinking about it? But actually hearing in the text these descriptions that we find in many places that are really pointing out in many different ways, like what it's like for the fully enlightened arahant. And these descriptions make it real, and it provides a proper orientation for our practice. So then we can know if our practice is like going in this direction, so then we're going towards that realized one. Just like if you visited and happened to see a realized noble teacher, if you happen to see a realized a guru who was really accomplished, and then you're modeling yourself after them. So if you're going in the direction of being how that person is, that's helping you stay in the positive direction, instead of going the opposite, or going crossways to what you see being modeled by an enlightened teacher. And so here, coming down through the ages, you got this gift from 2.5 millennia ago of how it is for the arahant. It's when the mendicant sees with their eyes the agreeable, the disagreeable, and both the agreeable and disagreeable arise in them. If they wish, may I meditate, perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. That's what they do. So in this case, the repulsive is called patikula, and this is a kind of a conditioning, taking something that's naturally could be seen as something disgusting, and the disgust could be something like physically disgusting, by like a rotting carcass, or it could be something that's morally disgusting, like evil and wholesome thoughts. Both of those things are disgusting in their own way. But then perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. So an arahant would be able to look at a carcass and feeling tone of repulsion towards a fresh carcass which is bloated and swelled up and has got maggots crawling in and out, is no different than a carcass which is already a couple of years old, which might be just a scattered bone lying on the ground, or just a bit of dust of a carcass that's completely decomposed and completely returned to the elements of nature. Both of them are seen in exactly the same way. It's just merely an aspect of impermanence. And in the same way, the enlightened Arahant, to me, the repulsive that the Arahant is able to see is how beings are reborn endlessly because of their karma. Being able to see their own previous lifetimes, where because of various karmas they came to be born again and again and again, hundreds and thousands of times, or whether they look over the world and see beings who are doing bad, evil deeds and good deeds, and then getting reborn accordingly to their karma. So that's the patikula. So the Arahant is able to see that with perfect clarity, but then they don't perceive it as repulsive. They just perceive this is causation, this is samsara, so they can see without participating in dukkha in that way. If they wish, may I meditate perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. That's what they do. So the apatikula, the non-repulsive, that could be like a delicious lunch. Is a good example. So that's something that could be like naturally pleasant, especially you see not only the food looks nice and it smells nice and it feels nice in the mouth, and also the donor who gave the lunch gave it with a thought of kindness, a thought of merit, and so there's so much generosity and so much goodness being embodied in the gift of the food. All of that is not repulsive, but then you can also see after this food is used by the body, it becomes repulsive. So then he's able to do that meditation to simultaneously receive the drops of food that have been dropped into the alms bowl by a loving donor and see like pieces of feces being dropped in the alms bowl. He can see both, but it's not causing any disturbance in any way. And then likewise, may I meditate perceiving both repulsive and unrepulsive, receiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive and repulsive, so mixed experiences. And then if they wish, may I meditate staying equanimous, mindful, aware, rejecting both repulsive and unrepulsive. That's what they do. So I'm going to emphasize here mindfulness. So this is showing us that mindfulness is like a type of perception where you see, or you could say a type of a concept, a type of sanya. So without mindfulness, the sanya or the perception is distorted by all kinds of biases depending on liking and disliking. depending on having all kinds of underlying tendencies towards greed or hatred. And that causes our perceptions to arise, say, oh, something is, it's good for me, or I like it, or it's bad for me, I hate it. But then mindfulness is a kind of a trained way of seeing where you've got some different perceptions that you become trained in. So you've trained yourself in the perception of impermanence. You've trained the mind to see the arising of phenomena. You've trained the mind to be able to see the disappearing of phenomena. And so then you see the arising and disappearing. That's part of the mindfulness training. And then with this mindfulness, which is a trained way of seeing, so it's both that it's active, it's energized in the term that it with mindfulness you remember to stay awake, you remember to pay attention, but also you're paying attention in a particular way, and the way you're paying attention is in a way that is rejecting both the repulsive and the unrepulsive. So this can be seen as in a way a useful alternative description of what the practice of mindfulness is like. It's a practice where one is staying equanimous, remembering to be mindful, remembering to be aware, rejecting both the repulsive and the unrepulsive. And one can do that on the occasion of all the inputs, seeing a sight, hearing a sound, smelling an odor, feeling a touch, and so on. And so this is the Buddha's teaching. He says, so I taught the supreme development of the faculties and the training of the noble ones. I've taught the practicing trainee, and I've taught the noble one with developed faculties. The Buddha says, out of sympathy, I've done what a teacher should do, who wants what's best for their disciples. Here are the roots of trees. Here are these empty huts. Practice absorption, Ananda. Don't be negligent. Don't regret it later. This is my instruction to you. And Venerable Ananda approved what the Buddha said. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we've beautifully used up this entire hour. And special greetings to Gita Manal Yankee, who have joined and checked in through the chat. And we will see you again next week.